what America was and what it can become. This is Liberty Town Hall.
Hello and welcome to Liberty Town Hall. I'm Greg Marshall. I appreciate you being here today. Here is Mark Rybicki with me today. Now Mark is our guest in studio for this time segment. He is going to be with us today to talk a little bit about several things with computers. We've had Mark on before talking about gun rights. You may remember the episode where Mark Rybicki was coming on to talk about getting a concealed weapons permit. Even though Mark is blind, he decided to exercise his rights, and it is within his rights to do so. He did. We're proud of him for doing that, because if you don't exercise your rights, it's just like a muscle. You don't exercise it, you lose it. Same thing with your rights. That's happening more and more in society. We don't exercise them, they go away. So we hit on that pretty powerful. But Mark is, and I need to say this because it impresses me, not because I'm making fun of me, but Mark is legally blind. And he is a computer IT specialist. And wait till we'll take about 60 seconds. He can tell you real quick how deeply. Now, Mark, real quick, well, first off, welcome. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Greg.
Give me a real quick 60-second synopsis. What can you see and what can't you see?
I can't see much of anything. What I see is dark light and, I can't say shadows. I see dark and light. Mm-hmm. And I can be sitting here right now looking at you, but I don't see you. I see that you're there, but I can't tell what you look like.
Just a fuzzy frame, basically.
Yeah. All I can tell is you're dark on the bottom and kind of lighter on the top, but I couldn't tell what you look like or what your hair looks like. Can't tell what mine looks like either. You could probably tell.
So you can't see the earrings in my ears and the piercing in my nose.
Can't even see the one in my nose.
The only reason I'm bringing this up is because I want you to understand. I mean, now tell people what you do in the computer technology world. Take 1 minute on that.
Do a lot, actually. We're into building desktops. We fix them. We install operating systems. We educate people. Believe it or not, I educate people on how to use their software. We build networks. We do run a lot of network wire. We do a lot of wireless stuff, commercial and residential.
Now the reason I bring that up is because you actually get inside a computer tower and work on it, correct?
Correct.
And you can actually see to put wires together and put equipment on and so forth.
There's limitations. I can put the thing together, but I can't put the little front panel stuff together, which is all these little tiny things, where you see your lights flashing and all that. Somebody else has to do that. Gotcha. But as far as putting it together, yeah, I can do it.
Don't ever think that you can't do something that you can't achieve. If somebody in the situation Mark's in can achieve and do wondrous things with his business, you can too. And I wanted to give you, in case you're in a situation where you needed to hear that encouragement, I wanted to make sure you had that. So that aside, Camatech.com is his website. You'll see it on screen in a little bit. Mark, let's get into some conversation. You've become rather a pretty decent expert at some of the issues that are going on in the electronics world. This program, we're going to talk about electronic surveillance, get some thoughts from you on that, and some interesting conversation, including government surveillance. I started getting fascinated with government surveillance back when I saw a guy who did a Freedom of Information Act request. And oftentimes your federal government especially, and I think your locals do it too, but it depends. Some do, some don't. Depends on who you're working with. But they made a Freedom of Information Act request. And a lot of times, to throw you off, I'm convinced, at least that's my opinion, in which I'm entitled, thank you, Chuck, you'll ask for A, and then they will fulfill it to the letter, and you didn't word it right, so you get something completely different. If you're asking for issues on turkeys and relationships with the wild turkeys in the inner woods, you might get something on butterballs. So with that in mind, this guy made a FOIA request, and it came back with a coin toss from the first Super Bowl, pictures of it. And as you read on the material, they sent him the wrong stuff. That wasn't what he asked for. Mm-hmm. It turns out it was from Super Bowl I, from a satellite 23,000 miles in space, was taking a series of pictures from the coin toss from the Super Bowl, and they actually took the photos, and amazingly enough, you could see the coin toss, see where it landed, the whole bit. This from a satellite. Now I bring this in mind because they didn't tell us, remember, we didn't know they could even take pictures from space until the late 80s, early 90s. Mm-hmm. And with that in mind, how much further have they gotten that we don't know about?
You know, Area 51, man. That's...
Yeah, I'm not so convinced there's alien spacecraft there, but boy, it's a heck of a test range.
Yeah, and yeah, this stuff is so secret and so top secret. Yeah, who knows? You know, I'm guessing too. I've got no idea on what level of technology there is out there, but I can tell you it probably knock your socks off.
Yeah.
Because they're always 20 to 30 years ahead of where we are now.
Well, that's the painted picture that we'll start out with. Let's talk about what we do know a little more and maybe how to safeguard, at least keep a little bit of your privacy. The Fourth Amendment talks about it. We'll come back and discuss it further too. My name is Greg Marshall. Thanks for watching Liberty Town Hall.
Are you a small business reaching out to a national audience or an established company seeking more exposure? Place your ad on Liberty Town Hall and reach up to 46 million homes nationwide. Call now for a quote.
Liberty Town Hall continues. Let me read you Amendment 4 of the United States Constitution. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause supported by an oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Our government sits on a constant basis and ignores that completely. The internet is allowed to be searched at will. Your emails are allowed to be searched at will, and so are your telephone conversations. The government's been doing it for years by a program called Project Echelon. I would encourage you to read that, from an agency that until recent years, the government wouldn't even admit existed, even though there was a big building and people showed up there every day. What is that? Oh, I don't know. Amazing how they pulled that off. Project Echelon is now more so an ability section, really, instead of a project. Because now, thanks to everything from the Patriot Act to many other things, they just simply do it. You heard what the Constitution says, and yet we don't extend that to our computer privacy. I would think, Mark, logically it does.
Well, that's only scratching the surface.
Just the beginning.
Yeah, it's just the beginning. I mean, it's one more thing to throw under the pile. Mm-hmm. You know, we're building this pile deeper and deeper that we're never going to find our way through, because we're violating this Fourth Amendment every dang day. Yeah. You know, if you get a speeding ticket and get pulled over, and they want to search your car, and you just are scared to death, and you say, "Okay, go ahead." Man, they violated you right then and there. You know.
But I gave them permission to. Yeah,
you gave them permission, but you did it out of duress. You know, it's out of duress. Same thing happens on the internet. Here's an example. Whenever you get a piece of software, what always pops up that you have to agree to
is their privacy policy.
There's two things. There's a license agreement, mm-hmm. and usually it tells everything that they can do to you, but who reads them? You know, if you ever read one, you'd probably never agree to it ever again.
But you have no choice.
That's exactly right.
You buy software that you need, especially in business, that you need to operate with in order to function. So I think the reason nobody reads it is because they know that they have to do it. They have no choice. They've already spent the money, and they have to have this to operate. Now, we have become so computerized that we have to operate from the software, and we just don't have an option to do anything.
Yes.
Now, can you think of a couple of examples? I don't expect you to know word for word, but when you said that we'd probably never do it again if we read what they're allowed to do, give me maybe some examples of general thought.
Okay, whatever you do on the internet stays on the internet. If you do something on Facebook, you send email, you go to a site, it's there forever. Mm-hmm. I mean, anybody can basically go in and look it up at any time. The only question is, how do I do it and where do I do it at? You know, if you've got that knowledge, then you've got the whole world in your hand.
Well, talk about that and how I do it and where I do it at. What do you mean by that?
Mean by?
When you're saying it's all about what I do and where I do it at, I'm not sure what to...
Well, what I'm trying to say is be careful what you do out there. Because whatever you do on the internet, it's going to follow you around. And there's going to be somebody someplace that's going to dig it up some point in time and use it against you. Who knows for what? It might be for a job. It might be for a bank loan to buy a house or a car. It might be just they don't like you and they're going to try to ruin you.
So you're saying it goes right down to the limit of if I go to a website and look at a page about comic books, somebody is keeping a record of that.
That traffic has been recorded. What's been recorded is the IP addresses that were used to get from point A to point B and whatever route they took. You know, those are generally kept, and they might not keep the actual traffic, but they keep what's called the packets that put the whole package together. And in these packets is information on how it got there. So if you've got what you're looking at on the internet on a web page, there's a packet of information that precedes it all called a header. And in that header, it's got all this information of where it came from, who sent it, you know, what computer did it. I mean, it's just loaded chock full of stuff. And its original use was just to make sure that it was getting from point A to point B, and all this stuff would be stripped off. Well, you know what? They're not stripping it off anymore because they want to use it. Because if you do hate speech, you know, oh, that's terrible, you know, and especially with the way hate speech is defined these days, they can go and look it up. They'll find it on the internet, look at the header, and go, we know where it came from. And then all they have to do is backtrack it, and that's not hard.
Wow. Now that's an example, but if somebody wants to mess with your life, make sure you're careful about where you go and who you visit, I guess.
Yes, be very careful.
Because you just don't know who's going to be around.
Well, if you're not paranoid about it, you better be. If you're out there on Facebook and you're Facebooking stuff and you're putting yourself up there and you're telling everybody what you're eating for dinner, you know, and what color socks you're wearing
and
today.
People do that.
Like nobody really cares, but you know.
It's amazing though, some people do that.
Oh, I know. But remember, if you told them what movie you watched last night, what you didn't like and what you liked,
they got a little more information on it that they didn't have before. You never know how it all comes together.
Whatever, you know, the best rule to remember is whatever goes on the internet stays on the internet.
No matter big or small.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Whatever you do, you know, watch yourself. Be careful.
Powerful lesson to know. We'll continue the conversation on how to keep yourself safe online and protect your privacy. There's more to come. Stand by. I'm Greg Marshall. It's Liberty Town Hall. And we're back. We're talking about computer surveillance today. And the reason it's important is because who can watch what about you? Mark Rybicki is with me. He is an expert in the digital domain. CamatechElectronics.com is his website.
Thanks for saying that. I don't think I'm an expert. There's too much to know.
I suspect no one's an expert, but you're as close as we can get today, Mark. Let's talk about that a little bit. And we were talking about browsing history, and that everybody knows where every single place you've been. So stick with Disney and not with some ugly places. With that in mind, let me throw this by you. They have this new thing on several, not every browser, but I think several type of browsers have this in private, or some people call it something different, but it's a different kind of browsing. First off, what is that, and does it work?
I use it when I think I'm doing something fairly sensitive, but no, it's not all that secure. All it does is erase your history. Doesn't keep track of where you're going.
So it erases your history internally in your computer.
Yeah.
But it doesn't change anything online.
No.
The same. If somebody's watching where you and I go online, they're still going to be able to watch where you and I go.
Yeah, and it doesn't stop. What it does is it stops collecting these things called cookies, which are just tracking things that tell you where you've been. A lot of cookies are used to keep your information so you don't have to enter it in again. You know,
but cookies are also set up. Remember how they originally started cookies? The idea was it made your computer run a little faster, like you said, because then it can copy everything and it knows your site again.
Yeah.
But now, if you disable cookies, you can't go to most websites.
Yeah, because what they do is they've got these login scripts and they've got their own security, and you have to have your cookies. Don't ever toss your cookies, but you can have your
especially
cookies.
Not around your electronics.
Yeah, really. You can. They need those because that's how they establish a secure connection between you and them. using a thing called SSL, or Secure Socket Layer, which is a form of encryption. Now, is that secure? That's going to stop Dick and Jane from getting into your stuff.
The average amateur is not going to.
Average amateur, but anybody who's really wants to get in there and has the skills to do it, like our government, they can easily crack things. And that's why when I'm doing something, I'll doubly encrypt it. I use this piece of software called TrueCrypt. It's free, and I'll throw it in there first, and then send it. So it gets encrypted twice. Now, can the government undo it twice? Most likely. Can some of these Russian hackers out there, or Middle Eastern hackers out there, do it? Most likely, but I'm going to make it harder for them. I'm going to make them work harder, and maybe they'll just get frustrated and say,
and move on to into an easier target.
Yeah.
So it's like locking your car doors. You hope that they go on to the next one, hoping his car doors are unlocked.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you want to just make it more difficult and aggravating for them. Some of them are going to find it as a bigger challenge, but they're mainly interested in taking your personal information and your bank account information. They want to do identity theft. They want to take your identity, and for good or for bad, and what I mean by good or bad is use your identity for a good purpose or for a bad purpose. You say, okay, somebody raped somebody, and this is who did it. I got their picture, and it's you.
Yep.
So that's the kind of identity theft I'm talking about. But there's the other kind of identity theft that everybody knows about, which is they steal your bank account information. They hit your bank accounts. And one thing, folks, you really got to watch is your bank statements, because these guys have gotten where they're not taking out large amounts. They're taking out small amounts. They're buying things like soccer tickets. They're buying clothing. They're signing up for $14.95 a month subscriptions to things, hoping that you won't catch it.
So you can buy lots of little products to trade around instead of one big one.
Things, yes.
Gotcha.
Hoping that you won't catch it. So watch that stuff carefully. If you're not paranoid being online or getting online, you should be. You should be very paranoid. Because if you're not, there's going to be so much information about you out there that the Fourth Amendment means absolutely nothing.
I've told everybody for a long time, if you're using a computer for banking information or things like that, you should absolutely, positively have two different computers. And you should keep a computer that's offline for all of your banking transactions and stay off of internet. Transfer the stuff back and forth with CDs or thumb drives or something if you have to, as opposed to actually getting online directly with the one that has your personal information on it. If you're going to be on the internet, I mean, there's certain types of business you have to do on the internet, and also I mean, like in our radio stuff, we have our audio on the internet, and we have to get on the internet to download more audio and stuff. I don't put my personal information on a computer at all. I don't do my banking on a computer. I stay away from it because I'm afraid of it. Am I paranoid too much?
I think you are a little bit. The weakest link in the chains is passwords. People, you just don't put passwords out there that actually work. You put in 1, 2, 3, 4, A, B, C, D. Put in Greg. Put in Mark. No. Come on, guys. You got to have at least 11 characters of totally random stuff.
I have a creative name that nobody would ever get, and I'm not telling you until I retire. When I retire from the broadcast industry, I'll change my password and I'll tell everybody what the old one was, and you'll be like, "What?"
But do you use the same password on everything?
I used to. I stopped doing that.
Yeah, you should.
I've got several different passwords for different places, like several different. So sometimes I forget which one's which, and I have to type in the different ones.
There's tons and tons of little programs that you can go out there and download that will help you generate a totally random password. And there's lots of little programs out there that you can download that helps you remember all of them. And if I didn't have and I don't want to plug the company, but I'm going to say RoboForm. There's also others out there called, what is that called? SavePass or, geez, I can't remember what it's called. But there's lots of them out there that help you remember all these little passwords, and they take a password to get it in. And here's the thing, password protect everything. Encrypt it and password protect it, And I think that's going to keep out, you know, the average Joe, the average hacker.
Keep the doors locked.
Keep the doors locked. It's gonna discourage more people from getting into it. And like I said, if the government wants to, they can, but it's going to take them longer.
When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about who should you be more afraid of. The different hackers from foreign countries, the old overlord deities that's I think now called anonymous, or the government itself. Let's talk with Mark Rybicki, find out what he thinks as we come back and conclude this Liberty Town Hall.
Are you a small business reaching out to a national audience or an established company seeking more exposure? Place your ad on Liberty Town Hall and reach up to 46 million homes nationwide. Call now for a quote.
Finishing up with Mark Rybicki here, we're talking about who to be afraid of when it comes to internet issues. Should it be the overlord deities, now anonymous, foreign hackers, our U.S. government, some teenager playing war games? Who should we be most afraid of, Mark?
I'd be afraid of governments, and I mean U.S. government, China's government. We've just got so much out there that these people are doing, and they've got the resources. Anonymous, the only reason they get a lot of press is because they do it by sheer numbers of people. It's not really technology, it's people. It's the amount of people. And governments can bring things down with less people because they have the resources.
Powerful stuff. And you said the U.S. government, so you
U.S.
worry
government,
internally, huh?
China's government, Russia's government. I mean, I'm not so sure about the Middle East, but you know, they're pretty good at it too. And I'll tell you, I'd be much more afraid of the government than I would be of anonymous.
Man, that sends a chill down your spine, because we're paying tax dollars to get ourselves injured. I mean, physically, as far as psychologically, and also through our computer networks. This isn't good. There's more to talk about. We'll take on it again in another edition of Liberty Town Hall.
If men through fear, fraud, or mistake should in terms renounce and give up any essential natural right, the eternal law of reason and the great end of society would absolutely vacate such renunciation, the right of freedom being the gift of God Almighty. It is not in the power of man to alienate this gift and voluntarily become a slave. Rights of the Colonists by John Adams, 1772.